Smells like they're serving Salisbury.
On February 27, 2026, the USS Gerald R. Ford was positioned off the coast of Israel. At 1:15 in the morning on February 28th, the first American missiles crossed into Iranian airspace. Within hours, Iran fired back over 500 ballistic missiles and nearly 2,000 drones targeting U.S. bases, American ships, and allied nations across 9 countries. 3 U.S. service members were killed, 5 were seriously wounded. And on the USS Gerald R. Ford, at that exact moment, 5,000 sailors were eating breakfast, sleeping in racks, and waiting for their shift. Because a warship doesn't stop for war. It was built for it. 17,000 meals cooked every single day. Sailors packed into sleeping quarters smaller than a prison cell. 3-minute showers on a ship that Iran had already targeted with ballistic missiles. This is the unseen backbone of American naval power, the daily grind that keeps the most advanced warships on Earth combat ready when the stakes are the highest they have been in a generation. And it is far more complex than you ever imagined. An aircraft carrier is not just a warship. It is a complete self-sustaining city that floats on water and projects American military power across the globe. But while the jets launching off the deck get all the attention, there is an entirely different operation happening below. Every single day, thousands of sailors wake up, work 12-hour shifts, eat 3 full meals, somehow find time to shower, and squeeze into tight sleeping quarters called racks. They do this for months at a time, thousands of miles from home, in a Middle East that is now, unmistakably, at war. Today, we are taking you behind the scenes of daily life aboard a modern American aircraft carrier operating in a combat zone. You will see how culinary specialists prepare enough food to feed a small town, how sleeping quarters fit thousands of people in a space that would make most people claustrophobic, and why something as simple as a working toilet can make or break an entire mission. If you have a son, a daughter, a brother, a spouse deployed in that region, this video is for them. Drop a comment below and tell us who you are watching this for. The galley, the heart of the ship. Let us start with something every human needs multiple times a day: food. On a Nimitz-class carrier like the USS Harry S. Truman, there are 5 separate galleys operating at the same time. On the newer Ford-class carriers, that number drops to 2, but they are far more efficient. Either way, the mission is the same. Feed over 5,000 people, 3 meals a day, plus a midnight meal called mid-rats for sailors working overnight shifts. That is more than 17,000 meals prepared, cooked, and served every single day, in kitchens that operate 22 hours a day. The only time the galleys shut down is between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning. And even then, there are other food options available. The scale is staggering. In a single day, the galley crew cooks 1,600 pounds of chicken. They go through 160 gallons of milk. 30 cases of cereal disappear at breakfast alone. 350 pounds of lettuce get turned into salads every single day without fail. Behind this operation are the Navy's culinary specialists. These are not cooks throwing frozen dinners in a microwave. These are professionally trained sailors managing equipment most civilian kitchens would envy. 80-gallon kettles that cook soup for hundreds of people at once. Industrial grills that handle over 100 pieces of meat at the same time. Mixers the size of a person. Ovens that run continuously for days. And here is something most people do not realize. The food is actually good. The Navy knows that morale depends on quality meals. Sailors work exhausting shifts in brutal conditions. And when those conditions include Iranian missiles being tracked on radar 2 decks above, a hot meal is not just fuel. It is a reminder of home. That is why the menus rotate on a 21-day cycle, with favorites like Taco Tuesday and themed meals on holidays built into the schedule. Keeping those kitchens stocked is a logistical operation in itself. Every 7 to 10 days, a supply ship pulls alongside the carrier in what is called underway replenishment. They transfer anywhere from 400,000 to 1 million pounds of food, moved from one ship to another while both vessels are moving through the water. When the ship is fully stocked, it carries roughly $3.5 million worth of food on board. But here is the reality. As the days pass between resupply missions, the fresh food runs out. Lettuce wilts. Fruit disappears. The culinary team shifts to canned and dried alternatives. Sailors can tell exactly how long it has been since the last resupply just by looking at their plates. The galley crew starts work at 3 o'clock in the morning. By the time most sailors roll out of their racks at 6 o'clock, hot food is already waiting. These culinary specialists are some of the hardest working people on the entire ship, and they almost never get the recognition they deserve. Feeding 5,000 people is impressive. But where do all those people sleep when their shifts end? The answer involves one of the most efficient uses of space you will ever see. The racks, sleeping quarters. Sleep is precious on an aircraft carrier. Shifts run around the clock. Jets launch and land at all hours. During Operation Epic Fury, the ship has not stopped moving since February 27th. So when a sailor finally gets to hit the rack, they need to fall asleep fast. Even if the world around them is still loud, still tense, still very much engaged in combat operations. Here is what that sleeping space actually looks like. Enlisted sailors share berthing compartments with anywhere from 40 to 100 other people. The beds, called racks, are stacked 3 high. Each rack is about 77 inches long and 27 inches wide. A standard twin bed is 39 inches wide. You are getting significantly less space, and the ceiling is barely enough to sit up in. Each sailor gets a thin foam mattress, usually 3 inches thick for junior enlisted. Chiefs get 6-inch mattresses. Officers get better arrangements. Storage is minimal. A small locker next to the rack, and sometimes a coffin locker underneath where sailors store everything they own for the entire deployment. Privacy is almost non-existent. Sailors hang curtains around their racks to block out light and carve out a small sense of personal space. Those curtains are essential because the berthing areas are lit 24 hours a day. Someone is always awake. Someone is always moving. The noise is another challenge. The constant hum of machinery. The thunder of jets launching off the deck above. Jets that, since February 28th, have been carrying live ordnance into Iran as part of Operation Epic Fury. The sounds of dozens of other sailors talking and moving through the compartment. This is not a training deployment. This is not a show of force. This is a combat deployment, and these sailors are sleeping through it because they have no other choice. Before we go further, if you have a family member on one of these ships right now, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing. It costs nothing, but sharing this video might help someone back home understand what their sailor is actually going through. That matters more than you know. On older Nimitz-class carriers, berthing compartments were built to hold up to 200 sailors. The newer Ford-class carriers improved that number significantly. The Ford's berthing areas house no more than 86 people in quieter sections of the ship. The Ford also separates lounge areas from sleeping areas, so sailors playing video games on their downtime do not disturb the ones trying to rest. Each berthing compartment has an adjoining head, Navy terminology for a bathroom, which means sailors do not have to get fully dressed just to use the toilet in the middle of the night. Officers have it better. Junior officers share staterooms with 1 or 2 others. They get larger mattresses, desks, and more storage. Senior officers and admirals have private staterooms that resemble small hotel rooms. But even those spaces are compact. Space is the single most valuable resource on a carrier. Rank determines your sleeping conditions, but everyone shares the same challenge: getting quality rest in an environment that never stops. Sailors work 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer during flight operations. When they finally get off duty, they might have a few hours before they are back on the job. Learning to fall asleep quickly, despite the noise and the knowledge that Iran has launched over 500 ballistic missiles at U.S. positions since the operation began, becomes a survival skill. The rack becomes their sanctuary. Some personalize their curtains. Others keep photos in their lockers. Photos of kids back home. A husband or wife watching the news every night, waiting for a text that just says "I am okay." It is not much, but it is home for months at a time. So we have covered eating and sleeping. There is one more essential part of daily life that is equally demanding: hygiene. With thousands of people, limited water, and a ship operating in an active combat zone. Showers and bathroom facilities. Let us talk about something most people take for granted: a hot shower. At home, you turn on the water, stand under it as long as you want, and never give it a second thought. On an aircraft carrier operating in the Eastern Mediterranean and Arabian Sea during a war, it is a completely different story. Fresh water is a limited resource. Modern nuclear-powered carriers can produce their own fresh water by desalinating seawater, but it is still not unlimited. The ship has to balance water needs for drinking, cooking, cleaning, firefighting, and showers. That is why sailors are taught the Navy shower method. Here's how it works. You step in, turn on the water, and wet yourself down as fast as possible. Then you immediately turn the water off. You soap up and scrub while the water is off. Then you turn it back on just long enough to rinse, and you are done. The entire process takes about 3 minutes and uses roughly 3 gallons of water. A normal 10-minute shower at home uses about 60 gallons. Each berthing compartment typically has 3 to 4 shower stalls. That means 80 to 100 sailors are sharing those few showers. There is no time to decompress. You get in, you get clean, you get out, because there is always a line of people behind you who just came off a 14-hour shift during a combat operation. The bathroom facilities, called heads, are equally no frills. A typical enlisted head has 3 to 4 toilets, a couple of urinals, and those few shower stalls. Everything is metal. Everything is built for durability over comfort. There is nothing extra here. And here's where things get complicated. The USS Gerald R. Ford, currently operating in the Eastern Mediterranean as the flagship of Operation Epic Fury, made a design choice that has caused real problems at sea. It is the first carrier in the fleet to feature entirely gender-neutral bathrooms. No urinals. Every bathroom on the Ford uses only seated toilets and stalls. The Navy's reasoning was flexibility. By making all heads gender-neutral, they can reassign berthing areas between male and female sailors without modifying the bathrooms. But bathroom design experts point out that seated toilets take up more than twice the space of wall-mounted urinals. On a ship where every square inch is spoken for, that is a meaningful loss. Seated toilets are also less sanitary when used by men standing up, and they take longer, which means longer lines. Then there is the bigger problem. The Ford's sewage system has been plagued by clogs and failures from the start. The ship uses a vacuum-based sewage system, similar to a commercial airliner. But the pipes were undersized from the beginning, and the system clogs frequently. When it fails badly. Raw sewage has backed up into berthing areas, forcing sailors to clean waste off the floors. Fixing those clogs requires an acid treatment that costs $400,000 every single time. The Government Accountability Office flagged this years ago. It is still happening. On the USS George H.W. Bush, which uses the same system, all 493 toilets went offline simultaneously during its maiden deployment. Some men used bottles. Some women held it until they developed health issues. It became a mission-impacting crisis. That might sound almost darkly funny until you put it in context. The Ford is currently the centerpiece of a major combat operation against Iran, the most advanced carrier ever built, and its toilets have a history of failing spectacularly. A warship can carry the most advanced radar, and the most capable aircraft in the world. But if the toilets do not work, the mission suffers. Sailors cannot perform under those conditions. Morale collapses. And in a war zone, broken morale is a liability you cannot afford. Despite all of it, sailors adapt. They learn the 3-minute shower. They figure out which heads are open and functional at what times of day. They adjust their schedules. It is not comfortable, but it is the reality of life at sea. Most sailors do not complain. They know the mission comes first. That is the mindset that makes the Navy function. Step back from the individual details, and what you are looking at is an extraordinary feat of human endurance, playing out in real time as the United States conducts its most significant military campaign in the Middle East in over 2 decades. An aircraft carrier is one of the most complex machines ever built. A nuclear power plant, an airport, a weapons platform, and a city compressed into a single vessel operating in waters that Iran has been firing missiles into since February 28th. None of it functions without the thousands of sailors living and working in conditions most people would find unbearable. They wake up in cramped racks after limited sleep. They shower in 3 minutes. They eat meals prepared by a team that has been on their feet since 3 o'clock in the morning. Then they go to work for 12 hours or more, doing the jobs that keep the ship running and the mission on track. They do this day after day while the world watches the conflict from the safety of a living room couch. The food keeps them fueled. The berthing areas give them a place to rest. The heads keep them clean and healthy. None of it is luxurious. Most of it is uncomfortable. But all of it is designed to sustain a crew of thousands in the middle of a war zone for months at a stretch. The crew makes it work. They build routines. They find small comforts. They take care of each other. The bonds formed during a combat deployment last a lifetime. The Navy continues to improve these systems with each new class of carrier. The Ford-class ships have better berthing layouts, quieter spaces, and more efficient galleys. Future designs will address the plumbing failures and push quality of life further forward. But the fundamental reality will not change. Carrier life will always require sacrifice, adaptation, and the willingness to put the mission ahead of personal comfort. What makes all of this even more striking is how young these sailors are. Many of them are in their late teens and early 20s. They signed up, went through training, and ended up deployed into the most active conflict zone on the planet. They are operating equipment worth millions of dollars. They are part of a campaign that has already reshaped the Middle East and will continue to do so for years. And they are doing it all from a rack the size of a coffin. For those watching who have served, or who have families serving in that region, you already know this. You know what it costs, not just in combat, but in the daily grind of living on that ship. The next time you see footage of an aircraft carrier launching jets toward Iran, remember what is happening below that flight deck. Remember the culinary specialists who have been cooking since 3 o'clock in the morning. Remember the sailor catching 2 hours of sleep before the next shift, with a photo of their kid tucked into the locker 6 inches from their face. Remember the engineers keeping the plumbing functional and the water flowing so 5,000 people can make it through another day. These are the people who make American naval power possible. They do not get the headlines. They do not get the press conferences. But they are absolutely essential. And at this moment in history, they are in harm's way, and they deserve to be remembered for it. The daily routine on an aircraft carrier does not pause for war. It is war. It is a constant cycle of eating, working, sleeping, and repeating, while jets carrying live ordnance launch off the deck above and Iranian missile alerts come through the ship's communication systems below. It is not glamorous. It is relentless. But it is the reality for thousands of American sailors deployed in the Middle East at this moment in history. They wake up in tight quarters, grab a 3-minute shower, head to the galley for a hot meal, and go to work keeping one of the most powerful weapons platforms on Earth fully operational during an armed conflict. The logistics behind feeding, housing, and caring for 5,000 people on a single ship in a war zone are staggering. It requires planning, efficiency, and constant maintenance. It requires sailors willing to adapt to difficult conditions and perform in situations that would break most people. These sailors are the backbone of the United States Navy. They keep the carriers running. They keep the missions on track. They represent American resolve in every ocean on the planet, and in a Persian Gulf that has not been this dangerous in decades. They do it all while living in conditions that would test anyone's patience and endurance. While these sailors are 7,000 miles from home, sleeping in a space smaller than your bathroom, eating reconstituted food out of a can, and going to work every day in a war zone, all you have to do is hit a button. That is it. Hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. You will never fully understand what they are going through, but you can make sure they are not forgotten. The least any of us can do is that much. Do it now, and drop a comment below with the name of someone currently serving or someone who has served. Let them see it. Let them know the world has not moved on while they were away.